you bought any of our merchandise yet? Well, you need to head over to our store, TarylFixesAll.com. Pick yourself up some merchandise. We got all kinds of stuff. Check it out. And there's your dinner. Pterodactyl here. Today's video is going to be on this here Intech 21 horse brakes and scrapple. And Fluffy had built a nest in there and had overheated one of the heads and the valve guide moved. So we're going to replace the head with a new one. Now I do have a trick for fixing the valve guide, but again, the repair is left up to the customer. He makes the decision, or she. And this customer, I told them I could repair the head, and they said no, they wanted a new head. So we're going to put a new cylinder head on this thing. And these things are in high demand right now from Brakes and Scrap 'em. And we got this one from our friends at ProPartsDirect.net. So check them out for all your small engine and outdoor power equipment needs. That's ProPartsDirect.net. They got online parts lookup, so you can look up your breakdown of your mower or lawnmower or whatever you're working on and see what parts you may need, and you can order them right online or you can call them. So check it out, ProPartsDirect.net. But since they're in high demand, you might want to check out my video on fixing the valve guide. But again, we were able to get one of these heads, probably the last one on earth. So first thing we're going to do is remove this blower shroud so we can take a look-see. See the nest that Fluffy had built. You can see some remnants of nest in there. That's why it's important to inspect your piece of equipment. So you got all these 3/8 blower shroud screws around here, and then you got to take off this screen, 5/16 or 8mm. Remove that. Pull this off where the air filter goes. Pull out this pre-filter, because sometimes there's a screw down here. And I also got to take off the fuel pump. Just take it off this bracket. Now this one's 3/8. Some of the newer ones have 5/16. I'm going to stick these back in there so I don't lose them, because I'm good at losing the hardware. Spend more time hunting for the hardware. And there you go. There's your dinner. So, figure it's probably this head that overheated, because that's where most of the nesting is. So let's pull this valve cover off to verify this is the side that's bad. Now the engine did run, it was just running on one cylinder and had no power. In case you're wondering what the symptoms were of this. But there is some debris on that side too. But it looks like most of it's on this side. Let me get this out of the way. And oh yeah, there's our push rod. There it is. Oh, whoa, slipping away from me. I gotta get a magnet. Now I've had them where there's no push rod in here. I've had it where the push rod ends up in the bottom of the crankcase. I think we did a video on that. And then I had to pull the engine and pull the sump cover and get the push rod out of there. Now, if that happens, it's not going to hurt anything. It's just going to lay in the bottom of the oil pan. And even though everything's swirling around in there, the crank and that, it's not going to pick it up. So if you're doing this and this ends up, it's missing and it's inside the engine, you can just replace the head and it'll be okay. Otherwise, you got to pull the oil pan off and get the old push rod out. So what happens is the guide moves. And when the guide moves, this can't open and close like it's supposed to. See, I can move this one. This one, see, it won't move. It's stuck because the guide is all the way up here. So when that happens, something's got to give. That being this. So now that we got that out of there, we put this back on because I'm going to want to take my shop vac and try to vacuum up as much of this, and then we're going to give it a good pressure scrubbing before we dismantle it. And another thing I could do, I was just thinking is, because you're probably sitting there thinking, well, how did you know? What does it sound like it was doing when that happened, Taryl? I need to know. So we can start this thing, and I'll let you listen to it, if it'll start. But it was run on one cylinder. And again, like I've said in many videos, you can check and see if it's running on both cylinders. Because one side's going to get hot, and the other side's going to get, it's not going to get hot, because it ain't going to be firing. So you could take a spray bottle with some water, and you could spray it on the exhaust manifolds. And when you spray it on the one side that's running, of course the water is going to steam up, and and then the other side you're going to spray water on, and it's going to be cold, and you can actually touch it with your hand, and it's not going to be hot. Another thing you can do, which is what I do all the time, is I just wet my fingers and just touch the pipes with my fingers. But that's me. Maybe, you don't want to burn your fingers. So let's start this thing and see what it sounds like. Sounds like a hit and miss engine. Now the reason it's doing that is because the other push rod's still opening and closing the one valve, not just the other one. Alright, so let me get the shop vac. Oh, here it is. Somebody must have brought it out for me. Here's the hardware for the cover. Let me get a tray. Alright, now it's a lot cleaner. Let me pull this rag out of there. I'm going to disconnect the choke cable because we're going to have to remove the intake manifold and this throttle cable. Disconnect that. Oh, got ghosts. Something just fell off the shelf. Made a mess for me. We'll get that later. I'm busy filming. Alright, let me disconnect the fuel line. Gotta get me a pair of needle nose to get that clamp off. Pull the fuel line off. I'll pull the fuel pump off the pulse line. tuck this back out of the way so it doesn't start leaking on us. All right, we got all that off. We'll go ahead and pull this bracket off under here. Let me disconnect this anti-backfire valve here. 3/8. Take that off. We can just kind of let that lay there like that. I don't want to lose my screws. Let's pull this intake manifold off, or at least loosen it, because I'm only doing the one side. So I may be able to just sneak the head off. All right, go over there, Mr. Cameraman. Let me pull off this fuel pump bracket. Give me a little room here to see. I'm going to put those screws back in. Man, that thing stinks too. Too bad we didn't have smell-o-vision. I don't want to stick that one back in there. Man, does that thing stink. Alright, let's pull this one out. Pull the plug wire off. Let's pull that screw out. So now we can kind of bend this out of the way. Get that out of our way. Yeah, let me just bend that out of the way like that. Alright. We pull the valve cover back off again. Lost that one. There we go. There it is. Throw them in there. Move our coil wire out of the way. And then, let's see here. There we go. You know what? Let me just take this off. There we go. Now we can just let that set there. Now let me get a socket and we'll take off the head bolts. One in the middle there. All right, let me I'm gonna throw all this hardware in this valve cover. And I need to take this muffin. Take this muffin cover off. Stick them back in there. Here's that other head bolt I dropped. And there's our head. And look at the other push rod's bent too. So we'll go over on the bench and we'll take a closer look at the head and about what I was talking about. Pull that head gasket off. Now these head gaskets, they don't blow like them crappy crawlers do. So I'm going to remove these rocker arms so we can get a closer look at the valve guide. Now this valve guide moves all the way up. It's the exhaust one, because here's the exhaust pipe, so it's on this side. So in order to take this apart so we can look at the guide, but see, here's the guide, here's the valve guide. It moved all the way up. And if you could see on the other side, the intake side, see, it didn't move. Now, I don't know why it bent the other one. Maybe because when this wouldn't move, it kind of threw it out of time a little bit, and this side had to work a little harder, so it also bent that one. But it didn't bend it enough where it popped off. But again, when it bends it, it changes the length of it, so it's not going to open and close the valve enough. Because look, I can move this valve, see? But this one I can't. So in order to remove that, I'm going to have to hit it with a hammer. And of course my hammer's missing. So in order to take this apart, I got to beat that down so I can get some movement in it, so I can collapse it to get the keepers out of there. So I'm going to use my rawhide mallet, or you can use a plastic mallet, or a piece of hardwood like oak. Don't use pine, because that'll just split. But I've got some hardwood here. You could put on there and then whack it with a steel hammer. But I'm going to use my rawhide. Wow. I shocked that one so much it blew the other one. It forced the other ones right off. And then you can take your spring compressing tool. Now you can collapse the spring and get the keepers out. So there's the guide. See, now I moved it back to where it's supposed to be. See, it's flush now on the inside. So my trick, if you wanted to fix this, because you're in a bind, and like I said, that part may not be available to get it, and the customer wants to get his mower back, what I do is, right here in this area, we'd have to clean this out, because here's where the guide is. There's enough meat. Now this doesn't work on all heads. I've tried to do it on a Vanguard head. There's just not enough meat on that head to do this. But I've done it on crawlers, and I've done it on these. Breaks and scrap them, Intex. So right here, you center punch it, and you drill it and tap it 1/4 and then you put a 1/4 set screw in there. Now in my video, I take the guide out. Then I drill and tap the hole. Then I put the guide back in. Then I take the same size drill, which is a 7/32 drill I use for the 1/4 tap. And then I drill a little divot in the guide. Because this isn't real hard. You can drill into this. This isn't super hard. This isn't like tool steel. It'll drill. You could drill all the way through it if you want. And then I put the set screw in because I'd already tapped the hole. And the reason I put the divot is so the head of the set screw goes into the divot you made, so this won't move on you. I've tried other tricks. I've tried Loctiting these in. I've tried grinding grooves in it to put the Loctite in there to hold it. The problem is it gets hot. It's on the exhaust side. And if you know anything about Loctite, if you want to remove hot Loctite, you heat it up. So if you put a set screw in there it'll do it. Now I've also done it where I didn't take this out. I just drilled it until I hit the valve guide and drilled into the valve guide a little bit, and then took a bottom tap and tapped it with a bottom tap. But if you want to get good threads through it, just pound this thing out. It's loose anyway. It moves pretty easy. Let me find a good socket. Find a little bit bigger one. Use a socket like a sleeve, and you could drive it out. See? It came out. Now you can center punch it, drill and tap it, because you got enough room for the tap to go all the way through, and then stick this back in and put it in the position you need to have it, which would be flush. You want it flush on the bottom down there. And then you can take that 7/32 drill and put a little divot in it, and then put your set screw in there and tighten it down. That guide will never move again. But again, the customer wants a new head, so that's what he's getting. So we need to remove this exhaust pipe on here, because we need to use this on the new head. And it's loose anyway. Everything's loose because of the heat. Physics. You know, it gets super hot. This is under tension because you tighten it. So then when it gets super hot, it stretches. Then it loses its tension. Remember you learned that in school? Yeah, you probably missed that day. Probably cutting class or daydreaming. Probably thinking about Britney Spears or Taylor Swift or something. All right, so this head's junk, or I could save it and do that repair. I could tag it, put a tag on it, and say that the guide needs to be fixed. All right, so let's get the new part and open the box and see if breaks and scrap them. Put any kind of love notes in there. All right, let's crack this baby open. Illegal in some countries. Maybe the country you're in. Not in this country. And if it is illegal, they gotta catch me first. So they sent us 2 pieces of cardboard. I'll save these. Oh, and a 3rd piece. I'll save that one too. All right, so here's our head. This is a problem when you buy some of these kits, or you buy these parts online. I know, like Kawasaki or Kinda Sucky. Sometimes you get just a head, and it's like, oh, I need all these other parts too. I wish I would have known what was in there. So here's the new head. It's a little bit different. It's a newer design, but it's got the new valves. And by different, I mean, it's got these little support arms, or whatever you want to call it, arches that they put there. I don't know why. But other than that, it's identical. Where the perches go for the rocker arms look a little different. Looks like they made this area a little bigger. Maybe to give it a little bit more of a foot for it to land on. Oh, and they beefed this up here, it looks like. Right in this area, I'm noticing. Looks a little beefier. But other than that, it looks the same. Okay. So that's that. Let's see what's in this box. Dump it out. Aha! Multiple love notes. I'm going to read these later in private. No, we're going to read them right now. All right, so you get a new set of rockers. And they give you an intake manifold O-ring. But we have the metal. We have the aluminum intake manifold. So this won't work. This is for the plastic manifold. So let's see what the love notes say. Oh man, a lot of love notes. Unless they doubled up on them. Important information. Use the intake gasket, plural, that match the one or ones removed from the engine. Use the cylinder head gaskets and exhaust manifold gaskets that match the ones removed from the engine. Same one twice. Little added bonus love note. Maybe, I could take that other love note, the extra one, and send it to somebody that I love. Maybe I'll send it to you. And then what is this? Important information. If the engine was originally equipped with breather and rocker cover gaskets, use gaskets supplied with this kit. If the engine was not originally equipped with gaskets, order Briggs & Stratton silicone sealant, which you're not going to do. Not included. Use a 3/16 continuous bead of sealant on the mounting surfaces when installing these parts. Mounting surfaces must be free of oil grease before applying sealant. Yeah, I don't like that love note. That's stupid. If you got a intake or a valve cover gasket in here and yours was siliconed on, I think I would just use the gasket. Instead of, now I gotta run out and buy sealant because of that stupid love note. Let's see what's in here. Okay. 2 head gaskets. Oh. And the difference being for different horsepower. See how this one's bigger and this one's smaller? So you have to match it up. And the bigger one, of course, has got a little beefier piece of metal ring in there. So you got to make sure you use the right gasket. If you use this gasket on this engine, see how smaller it is? It'll work, but the piston will hit the gasket and it'll knock. Trust me, I know. Because somebody did that. They put the wrong gasket on and it was knocking. 2 intake manifold gaskets. These are the ones we need for the aluminum one. And it's got adhesive on it. This is sticky, so you peel this off. It'll hold it for you. It'll stick to it. And then 1 exhaust gasket, and then a valve cover gasket. So yeah, I'm going to use the valve cover gasket if it was siliconed on. All right, so there you have it. Now all we need to do is install it. But it didn't give us push rods. So I got to find a set of push rods now. So hey, brakes and scrap them. Put a set of push rods in there too. Crawler don't have a problem when they make kits for their garbage, adding all kinds of parts you don't use and throw in the dumpster. So put a set of push rods in there. Capiche? Okay, I got the new head here and I installed the exhaust manifold and I have it loose. So that's what you're going to have to do. You don't want to stick it on there and tighten it up because you may have to, see it's got some wiggle room in there. And then here's the old head gasket, which matches up with this one. So this is the gasket we need, not this other one. And then I went ahead and already got the old intake gaskets off. so we can install the new ones. So this is pretty straightforward. Stick it on those locating pins. Those 2 locating pins that are on there. And then we'll stick the head on there. Get this out of the way a little. Now I'll go ahead and put the head bolts in, and I'll get them up to the head, and then we're going to go ahead and torque it. So now we need to torque it. 220 inch-pounds is what they recommend. So I'm going to start with this one here, and then we're going to go in a cross pattern because they didn't give us a love note on that. And then you're going to want to do it gradually until you get to the 220 inch-pounds. And then just go around and make sure it doesn't move. Oh. That you're at your torque spec. Now I went around and torqued it to save time. That's why it's clicking. I thought you said do it gradually. Yeah, well I did it gradually. Trying to save time. I'm just showing you. Go a little more, it ain't gonna hurt it. Alright, so now I'll install the new intake gaskets. And then I'll tighten up this manifold now that I got that in place. With my Torx bit, let me give you the size. It's a T45 on this one. And I put the new exhaust gasket on there. Where's the other one? Because if you tighten it up, you'll end up loosening it because it ain't going to line up exactly. And just tighten it. Just make sure it's good and tight. Alright. So again, you got the adhesive, which makes it nice, and it also makes it nice when you go to remove them. They come off pretty easy. Not like some of these gaskets, when you go to scrape them off, they're like welded to the metal. I can't even get the backing off of this one. There we go. And it don't matter where you stick it. You can stick it on a manifold, you can stick it on the heads. I want to make sure it's lined up. So I'm going to take the manifold screws and shove them through the holes and then press it to the manifold. So that way I know it's lined up. And I'll do the same to the other side. Then I'll bolt it back on. Then I'll bolt this back on. Now I'll reattach the choke cable. Just make sure the knob's pushed in all the way and it's fully open. Tighten her down. Now we'll attach the throttle cable, which is a little short. This one's a little trickier. Let me try to go underneath. There we go. I'll go underneath the valve cover. Give me a little room. Now let me see what position it's in. Put it all the way on slow. And it's on slow, so we'll push it all the way in until it stops. And then tighten it up. And then let's, oh yeah, working, choke's working. Okay. Now, the push rods. and the rocker arm. So look at the old push rod here. See, it's pretty thick in diameter. And look at the new one. I'm gonna take it out of this bag. Seems to be a little bit thinner in diameter. Or maybe my eyes are deceiving me. But it seems like it's a little bit thinner. Here is the part number. This is the old part number, because when I looked up this engine, it gave this part number and said it superseded to this number. So usually when a part supersedes from one to another, that means they changed it. And obviously they made it a little bit thinner. Now, it's got one aluminum and one steel. You can put two steel ones in there. You don't have to go with one steel and one aluminum. You can swap them. It doesn't matter. You can put two steel ones in. I wouldn't advise putting two aluminum ones in, but I would put two steel ones in. So I'll grab another steel one from upstairs, but I just wanted to show you the aluminum one. And then I'll spill out. See, now we got extra gaskets, some extra parts. Here's our rocker. Looks like it's got some thread locker on it. And make sure that you get the end of the push rod into the little cup part of the lifter that's down in there. So you're gonna have to get down and look with the light to make sure that happens. You gotta make sure it gets in that little socket for it. I don't know if the cameraman can see in there. And then we're gonna have to adjust our backlash. So let me get everything lined up. Let me drive this in. And then I'm going to double check to make sure it's in there. Yep. All right. So let me go get another steel push rod, do the other side. And we'll continue on. Okay, so just to verify that it is different, I got a drill gauge. And here's the 3/16. And you can see it's sloppy. And here's 3/16. I went to 13/64. So yeah, it is. It's thinner. So they cheapened it up. Which again, for this company, is no surprise. This industry has really gone downhill in the past few years. I mean, all across the board with this lawn equipment, in my opinion, because I'm working on this stuff every day and I'm seeing it. Every time I go to look up parts, not available, not available. And then I have to go on the internet or the inner screen, and then I find somebody's making it aftermarket, but then again, you're rolling the dice again. Is it any good? Is it good quality? Is it going to last? But it's shameful. It's very shameful. Thank goodness I only got a couple years left till I retire. But again, when I retire, I'm not retiring the channel. I'm still going to make videos. I'd rather make videos than work on this stuff and have to deal with all this nonsense constantly. Because again, I'm at the bottom. I'm the last person you see. So of course, as the customer, you're going to want to lash out at me when you can't get your lawnmower fixed because I can't get a part, or it's back ordered, or they don't make it anymore. Now I'm sure there's a torque spec on here. And here's my torque spec. Just don't, tighten it too much where you're going to snap that off, because you'll have a bad day. And this thing torques pretty good. This thing torques easily over 200 inch-pounds. If I really want to hammer on it and lay on it. So, again, as my friends in Germany say, hello everybody over there in Germany. It's Guten Tag. Alright, now we're ready to set our valve lash. So the way I do it is, I turn the motor over until this valve is fully open and this one's closed. That way we know there's no tension on it. You don't have to do that. You gotta bring it to top dead center and both valves closed. No, you can do it this way because there's no tension on the lobe. So they recommend between 4 and 6 thousandths, and I got 4 here. So this is 1/2 inch, and this is 3/16 for that. So I'm going to get a 1/2 inch wrench. We're going to loosen that jam nut. We're going to adjust our backlash. Cold. You got to do it when the engine's cold. So loosen the nut. And you're going to turn in that set screw till you get some drag on there. Then you're going to tighten that jam nut. Now, of course, when I push down on it, it's going to want to turn the set screw. So you got to hold back on it. Got to hold tension back on it. And that's pretty good. Oh yeah, see? Now another thing you can do is, since it's between 4 and 6, you could go to the high side of 6, and then if it's real snug in there, pull it out and then try a 4 and see if the 4 goes easy. And then you just turn it over and do the same for the other side. Now the exhaust valve is fully open. They're not very tight from the factory. They just got them loosely on there. Got it holding on there. Oh, that one came out. I made it a little looser there. Oh yeah, that's good. We're between 4 and 6. Yeah. All right. There we go. There's our dinner. So let me get this air deflecting shield back up there, bent back up. Get the fuel line hooked up. Put the new valve cover gasket on. Put the valve cover on. Get the blower shroud back on. And then we'll do as Elkskin says. You know what Elkskin says, don't you? He says, fire it up, 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 fire it up. Let's fire it up. All right, I got it all back together. So let's left my head. Well, sounds like the baffles in the muffin are rattling around. And of course, we're going to get some smoke off of it because, you know, there's some oil and stuff that leaked on it. So that's got to burn off. But yeah, what did we learn today? Grass rats. Got to keep that engine compartment clean. You got to keep a clean machine. Fluffy gets in there, he's going to cost you money. And it could cost a lot of money. I'm trying to show you how to do it yourself to save you money. And look, she's purring like a kitten again. Yeah, baby. Everything's all better now. If that was a cat, it would have killed that mouse and it would have never set up shop in there. Well, grass rats, if you like this video, hit the like button. If you haven't already subscribed, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Follow me with your rat and rodent infested lawn equipment on Facebook, Instagram, and soon to be banned TikTok, which probably won't happen, and if it does, who cares anyway? Got all these stupid platforms all over the world. Who cares? Check out our web store. Got all kinds of stuff. Like this beautiful work shirt. You know where this work shirt will look good? On your skeleton. That's right, it'll look good on your body. Check out our web store. We got all kinds of other stuff on there. There may be something you need. And as always, there's your dinner. Woo! Fixing another one! Polishing another turd! Now we gotta put the hood on. Get this thing back to the customer so he can start cutting some grass.